Good afternoon, everyone. The Secretary of City Council will please come to order. Please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Here.
Councilmember Laloe,
Here.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Here.
Councilmember Chenier,
Here.
Councilmember Jennings,
I am here, and City Clerk, we're hearing double on everybody who speaks.
There's a big echo.
thank you, I'll look into that.
There's an echo.
Councilmember Vang,
Here.
I expect Councilmember Guerra momentarily, and Mayor Steinberg.
Here. Okay. If we could try to fix that. Actually it's went away, I think. I don't hear the echo. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Sacramento City Council. Welcome members of the public and my colleagues and the city staff. Members, we have a consent calendar. I have, one comment on item number 1, which I'd like to speak to now, and then we'll see if any other member wants to take any items off or to speak on any of the items. It's the annual ritual of the confirmation of the mayoral appointments to council standing committees, regional authorities, and agencies. And I just want to tell all of my colleagues how much I appreciate, the city appreciates, and I'm not sure that the public always understands and recognizes that your job is more than just coming to the city council on Tuesday, that you work 7 days a week, for and on behalf of your districts, but you also have these other big responsibilities to sit on joint powers authorities, to sit on various council committees, and that this is a full-time job. And I just think it's important to note that I urge the public to look at the list of committee assignments that the members have here, because it is a major load. I know none of you ever asked for sympathy because we all happily signed up for this, but it is important to know. And so I thank you for your service. Are there any other items that the members, any member would like to be considered separately or to raise for discussion?
Mayor?
I know.
If it's okay with you?
I know what you're going to say.
No, I'm saying if it's okay with you, I'd like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Councilmember Jennings, very much.
You all please rise with me, please. Salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which I stand,
and
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you for that honor, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for helping me once again, Councilmember Jennings. Appreciate it. Some might say saving me. I do appreciate it very, very much. Okay, so back to the consent calendar. I see that Councilmember Valenzuela has a question or comment. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item 5 for discussion.
Okay, we'll pull item 5 and take that up separately. And so are there any questions on items 1 through 11 minus item 5?
I'll move the balance of consent, Mayor.
Mayor, I just have a quick comment on item 11, if possible, not to pull off consent.
No, of course. Let me just see if I can get a second on the remainder of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So let's turn over to Councilmember Vang for a comment on item 11.
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to staff for their outreach that they conducted for the amendments made to the master plan for Wood Park to add a community garden, ADA accessible picnic areas, and other amenities. And I just want to say thank you to Tinhua Wong from the city for just being responsive to community requests regarding all the amenities. And so I want to just give a shout out to staff and thank them for their hard work. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Councilmember Vang. Yep, an outstanding staff. All right, is there public testimony on the consent calendar?
I have no callers on the consent calendar.
Okay, then let's call the roll on items 1 through 11, absent item 5.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Laloe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Yes.
Councilmember Chenier,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings,
Aye.
Councilmember Vang,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Aye. All right, the consent calendar 1 through 4 and 6 through 11 passes. Now let's take up item 5. Councilmember Valenzuela.
Yes, thank you for this. And City Manager and Chief Han, I was looking for a little bit more information on the training that was going to be offered to police department staff through this item. And then I had a couple of follow-up questions, but I'll start with that one.
So Captain McCloskey is going to chime in and respond to that, and then we will have the questions afterwards.
Good morning or afternoon. This is Captain Bob McCloskey with the police department. So what is the questions?
My first question was just what type of training the officers and police department staff received through this item.
So this covers our basic police academy along with our in-service training for all officers. It also includes both the crisis intervention and EVOC for all city staff citywide. So there is a list of a number of instruction courses that that is covered, but mostly it's under the umbrella of our in-service training for all our continuous officers each year.
Thank you. And a follow-up question to that, I was looking back to the Police Commission recos, I think from 2018. There was a recommendation from the Community Police Review Commission to include things like ethnic studies and implicit bias training in police ongoing curriculum and education. Is that something that's included in this package?
Yes, it is. And it has been for the last couple of years. We post on our website under the transparency page all the curriculum that is taught to not only the academy recruits each year, but also the in-service training sworn officers year to year. It includes both those topics along with additional other ones. But they're all listed on there, everything that we teach.
Okay. And are those required classes or are those optional classes?
Actually, they're both. And we go above and beyond what POST requires of us. Usually POST are Commission on Police Officer Standards and Training. They require about 680 hours. And we usually do about 980 each academy class.
Thank you. And yeah, I want to appreciate that based as we're getting up to speed and reviewing the Police Commission recos, that the police department seems to have adopted a lot of the commission's recos like sort of on their own. But I was also reminded that I don't think the council's ever taken action to formalize those recos as policy for the police department. So I know we have been having a conversation about agendizing a discussion about police response to protests and how do we increase transparency around those items. And I know that there's been some talk about the 19th, but I'm worried that agenda is kind of full. So I guess related to this and beyond this, happy to move this item as it is for today, but did want to request maybe a special meeting to talk about police matters, because I think this is a longer conversation, and to specifically ask if the Police Review Commission's recommendations could be included as a potential action item during that meeting. So I don't know, City Manager, if there's any comments on that, but.
So I've been working with the mayor about agendizing this item for the 19th, and we're likely going to split off the 5 o'clock meeting to have an afternoon meeting, just so that we're not, that we spend a sufficient amount of time covering this item. Relative to the recommendations, I'll revisit it with our police chief to see where we left it the last time with the council. As I understand it, there are many of the recommendations that have been incorporated with the policies, but I don't have that tip of the tongue at this moment.
Yeah, we are, City Manager said, I think transparency always is good. And, our police chief, I believe, leads with transparency. When you look at the fact that we're one of the first in the country to have all of our officers have body-worn cameras and the early release of video. And so on all these questions, next Tuesday, let's put it out there and let's allow the members and the public to ask and answer all the questions, and let the video and the evidence speak for itself. Look forward to it. Thank you. Okay, is that a motion on item 5, Councilmember Valenzuela?
Yes, correct, but I'm not sure. I saw Councilmember Vang's hand up, so I wasn't sure
I'm
if she had
sorry,
anything to add.
Go ahead. Go. Sorry.
Thank you, Councilwoman Valenzuela. Just really quick, Captain McCloskey, did I say that right? I want to make sure I'm saying that correctly. Just to reconfirm that ethnic studies is part of that curriculum. I've been meeting with different commissioners since I've arrived, and my understanding from the commission is that some of these recommendations have not yet been implemented, and if it has, which is great, I'm wondering what the communication is with the police commission, so that they're aware, our commissioners are aware that in fact these recommendations have been implemented. From my conversations just with appointees is that there seemed to be a disconnect in terms of that communication. And so if the police department is implementing these recommendations, which is great, I think it's important to make sure that we have that loop around with the commissioners.
Yes, as far as the ethnic studies, that is something that we are incorporating into our continued professional training for 2021. But in years past, we've had the fair and impartial policing, the gender awareness, crisis intervention, procedural justice, just to name a few. And like I said, we're starting to log and track each training that we give each year and put it on the transparency page. So if anyone has a question about what we're instructing our currently sworn officers, they can go to our website and see exactly what they're being taught.
Thank you, Captain.
Okay, is there a second on the motion, please?
A second.
Second by Councilmember Chenier. Let's call the roll. Is there any public testimony on item 5, Madam Clerk? No? Let's call the roll, please.
That's correct. There's no public testimony on item number 5. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby?
Yes.
Councilmember Laloe?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Yes.
Councilmember Chenier?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings?
Aye.
Councilmember Vang?
Yes.
And Mayor Steinberg?
Aye. Okay, that passes 9-0. That dispenses then with the consent calendar. Let's go to item 12. This is the vacating of various public roads and utility easements. Who's presenting in North Sacramento? Who's presenting on this?
Public Works is, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor, Madam City Clerk, and members of the City Council. My name is Jair Bautista with the Engineering Services Division in the Department of Public Works. Before you this afternoon is an item with staff recommending adopting a resolution to vacate 3 contiguous easements that run along the 2 city-owned parcels at 3555 and 3549 Norwood Avenue. These 3 parcels have an approximate combined width of 45 feet and span 729 feet along with 2 parcels. The vacation was requested by city staff as these easements are unnecessary for present or future use, but need to be vacated for the construction of the El Paso Heights Sports Complex at these locations. This vacation will not impact vehicular circulation, sightlines, and will not be needed for future road purposes. Public Works staff, along with other utility agencies, support the vacation request, and furthermore, this project is consistent with the Sacramento 2035 General Plan and in compliance with the California Streets and Highways Code. That concludes this proposal, and staff will be very happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Laloe, this is your district. Any questions?
This is a great project. I was briefed about this yesterday, and I don't see any issue. And I'm in favor of this move. It's a great project that adds something for the youth in the community. So I'm a big supporter of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You want to move is there public testimony in the item, Madam Clerk?
There's no public testimony on this item, but we do need to open and close the public hearing.
Okay, Councilmember Laloe, your honor here to open and close the public hearing and to move the item, please. Here you go. Oh, man.
Oh,
Go ahead. Oh, my God. When can we all get back together? Well, go ahead, Sean.
I vote to move the item forward.
Okay, just new member, and it requires you to open and close the public hearing. That's a formality, and to move the item, and then that'll be seconded, and that'll suffice.
Let me help him out. Let me help him out, Mayor.
Thank you, neighbor.
Councilmember Laloe, having heard you open and close the item and move it, I will second.
Okay. Very good. Moved and seconded. Let's call the roll on the item, please.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Laloe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Yes.
Councilmember Chenier,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings,
Aye.
Councilmember Vang,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Aye. Very good. That passes again 9-0. Item number 13, which is another annual ritual where under our council rules and procedures, the mayor proposes a vice mayor and a mayor pro tem for the city to serve for the year. And I've been pretty good about attending meetings, but it's very important roles in case the mayor cannot either attend a meeting in order to represent the city at various civic functions, where again, the mayor, whoever it may be, cannot attend. This year, I think it's really special that we have 3 new members, new energy, and a lot of new ideas. And I also think that it is appropriate then that the 2 longest standing members of the city council, council members Jay Chenier and Councilmember Angelique Ashby, served this year as the vice mayor and the mayor pro tem, respectively. They, of course, are both respected members in their districts and throughout the city. And I know we'll do a great job over the course of this next challenging year, but year of great opportunity. So I appreciate the council's support for these selections, and I would urge an aye vote. Councilmember Jennings?
Mayor, I've looked at your history in the years that you've been mayor of the council and your selection of vice mayor as well as the mayor pro tem. And I would like to first congratulate Jeff Harris and Angelique Ashby for their work last year and applaud them for the great job that they did. This year, your selection of Jay Chenier and Angelique Ashby as the vice mayor and the mayor pro tem, I think is an excellent choice. If that was not a motion, I'd like to make a motion to approve it. And if it was a motion, then I would like to second
Yeah, I guess that's my motion. And so I will take your second. And let me also add my thank you to Vice Mayor Jeff Harris, who wasn't required to stand in a lot of times, but when he did a great job and represented the city very well. So appreciate it. Appreciate your service. And everyone, over time, stay here long enough, everyone will get a chance not to serve in one of these positions. And I think it's good and it's important. So anybody else? Okay, then let us call the roll on the hopefully non-controversial motion. Go ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Laloe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Yes.
Councilmember Chenier,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Vang,
Yes.
Councilmember Vang.
You
I was
said
on
yes.
mute, but yes.
Thank you, Mayor Steinberg.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. Give him a hand. Come on, everybody. That's great. Thank you again for your service here. Let us now move to item 14, which is the 2020 audit of the city employees' workforce diversity and salary trends, a very important item for our city. Let me turn it over to our city auditor, Jorge Azueta, to begin.
Thank you, Mayor Steinberg. Mayor Steinberg, I just wanted to ask, I think the last time we presented this at budget and audit, we took the two items together. Did you want to take these two items together?
Yes, I'm sorry. Why don't we take items 14 and 15 together? That makes sense.
Sure. And we'll just kind of roll through both projects. They are separate projects, but I think it's just more efficient, and we're all about efficiency here, tackling the two. All right. So good afternoon, Mayor Steinberg and members of the City Council, Jorge Azueta, your city auditor. With me this afternoon is Farishta Arari and Shabelle Jackson, who were primarily responsible for completing this project. The recommendation that is before you is that you pass a motion approving the city auditor's 2020 audit of employee workforce diversity and salary trends, as well as the city auditor's 2020 diversity, equity, and inclusion survey. All right, so similar to previous diversity audits, the objective of this audit was to assess the diversity of city employees as it compares to the diversity of City of Sacramento residents. This year's report has incorporated also trend analysis, which examines city employees' demographics from 2016 to 2020. The National Committee on Pay Equity first observed Pay Equity Day March 31st, 1996 as an event to illustrate the pay gap between men's and women's wages. The US Census Bureau uses data from the current population survey to continue pay gap studies of full-time employees over time. In 2018, they found that females earned 81.6 cents to every dollar earned by males. The most recent report found that it will take until 2059 for women to receive equal pay. In this report, you will find a similar analysis conducted on city employee salaries. We should note that both the Census Bureau analysis and the analysis we conducted does not consider other aspects that may contribute to the gender pay gap, such as differences in education, experience, or barriers for a gender to enter a particular profession. The report consists of 6 chapters. The report includes 130 figures, which provide some insight into how reflective our city employees are of our community. Since the release of the 2017 audit of the city's gender and ethnic diversity, we have implemented changes to update, improve our reporting process. For example, we have updated the data extraction process so that we analyze employees' demographics as of July 1st of each year. Having now performed this analysis over several years, we can now better illustrate trends and patterns that may help the city assess whether the city is becoming more reflective of its community. For this report, we also use the Human Resource Department's updated definition of city management employees. A detailed definition of management employees is included in Appendix 1. The Office of the City Auditor also issued an employee survey to collect and analyze employees' data that is not available in ECAPS and to gauge employees' perception of city's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. The result of this survey will be discussed after this particular project. Since the release of the 2017 audit of the city's gender and ethnic diversity in January 2018, various improvements, programs, and recommendations have been implemented to help build a more representative, equitable, and inclusive city of Sacramento. The city manager's office hired Ami Barnes as a diversity and equity manager in 2018, released the 2018 ethnicity and gender diversity report, and became a member and participant of Government Alliance on Race and Equity. The Human Resources Department implemented all recommendations in the 2017 audit of the city's gender and ethnic diversity, and the Human Resources Department also conducted an RFP for a citywide classification and compensation study and worked with the city manager's office to develop and finalize a citywide recruitment, hiring, and selection manual. In 2019, the Office of the City Auditor created the City of Sacramento's Gender and Ethnic Diversity Dashboard, which provides interactive data on gender and ethnic composition of city employees over time. Here's a screenshot of the dashboard. Users can customize their own analysis of city employee demographic data by filtering for different variables as noted across the top of the dashboard. To determine Sacramento's residents' demographics, we relied on data from the US Census Bureau's 2019 American Community Survey. On this slide, we list some of the key statistics related to the city of Sacramento's estimated population as of 2019. The total population is estimated to be 513,000. The three most populous ethnic racial groups in the city are white at 32%, Hispanic or Latino at 31%, and Asian at 16%. Females comprise of 50.4% of the city's population, while males comprise of 49.6%, and the average household income is $89,564. This chart shows the number of employees for each year. We should note that in early 2020, due to the COVID-19 outbreak and anticipated loss of revenues in the coming fiscal year, the city manager implemented a hiring freeze for all non-essential recruitments. This chart shows the tenure ranges of full-time and part-time employees. The chart shows that each year, the largest tenure range is of 0 to 5 years. This chart compares the percentage of non-management and management employees by department and gender. The chart shows that females, non-management employees, account for 34% of all non-management employees, while female management employees account for 39% of management employees. The chart to the left shows the gender breakdown of all full-time and part-time city employees over the years. The chart to the right shows the gender breakdown of only full-time city employees over the years. As you will notice on the chart on the left, when looking at all city employees, the percentage split between genders has remained relatively constant over the last 5 years. However, when we focus on employees that occupy management positions, there is a discernible trend towards percentages that are more reflective of city residents. This chart shows the percentage breakdown of city employees' ethnicity race by department and compares it to the ethnicity race by the city population. The chart shows the largest ethnic group among city employees are white, Hispanic, Black, while in 2019, the report showed that the largest ethnic racial groups among Sacramento residents are white, Hispanic, and Asian. This chart shows the percentage point difference of the ethnicity races of city employees in each department in relation to ethnicities, race of City of Sacramento residents. For example, if the percentage of white employees in a department is 60% and the percentage of white residents is 35%, the number reflected in the table will be 25 percentage points. In other words, 60% minus 35% is the 25 percentage point difference, which is reflected in the charts. Oops. Sorry, let me go back one. The color of the cells represents how reflective city employees are of City of Sacramento residents. The green cells reflect a overrepresentation by 5 percentage points or greater. Red cells represent an underrepresentation by 5 percentage points or greater, and no color in the cells indicates that the ethnicity is within plus or minus 5 percentage points of city residents. This chart shows the breakdown of employees by ethnicity and race from 2016 to 2020. The data shows that the largest ethnic groups over the years are white, Hispanic, and Black employees. This chart compares the ethnicity percentage of full-time and part-time city employees to those hired before July 1st of 2019, referred to as legacy staff, and those hired after July 1st of 2019, new hires. To the extent that the new hires differ from the legacy staff, the overall employee composition will continue to evolve. This chart compares the ethnicity percentages of all management city employees to those hired before July 1st of 2019 to those hired after July 1st of 2019. In this chart, it compares the ethnicity race of full-time and part-time city employees hired after July 1st of their respective years. The chart shows that each year, the largest ethnic racial group to be hired at the city are white employees. This chart depicts the number of full-time employees by gender and by salary bracket. This chart depicts the number of full-time employees by ethnicity by salary bracket. And the next three charts analyze the average base salary of employees. The arrows in the bars indicate the year-to-year percentage change. This chart analyzes the average salary of full-time and part-time city employees by gender and year. In general, male employees have a higher average salary than female employees each year. This chart presents the average salary of full-time city employees by gender from 2016 to 2020. And this chart examines the average salary of city employees, excluding part-time and sworn Sacramento Fire Department and Sacramento Police Department employees. We excluded part-time employees in the salary analysis, as part-time employees typically receive lower salaries for working less hours. We excluded sworn Sacramento Fire Department and Police Department employees to assess the impact on average salaries when removing some of the city's larger male-dominated positions. The Human Resources Department provided a list of the excluded sworn positions, which can be found in the background section. In the following charts, we performed an analysis which compares the average salaries of employees by ethnic, racial groups, and gender. To determine the ratio of earnings, we compared the demographic groups to the largest demographic groups at the city, which is white male employees.
So, Mr. City Auditor, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but going through chart by chart and telling us what the chart describes is fine. I'd like a little bit of analysis here. A little bit about what it concludes, because the charts are a little hard to follow. Give us some conclusions as you're going here, please, so that we get the flavor of what it is you've found.
All right. So this chart shows the average salaries and ratio of earnings of full-time and part-time employees. The chart shows the average salary of male employees is $23,000 higher than the average salary of female employees. So that would be one of those things to highlight, as you suggested. Additionally, the lowest average salary are predominantly female demographic groups. And so if you look at the chart towards the bottom, you can see that female Black employees, 191 of them, they earn about 55 cents on the dollar when compared to our white employees. If you look at, for example, female Hispanic employees, they're also at 55 cents on the dollar. And so, I mean, this is a real data-rich environment, and that's why I tried not to delve too much into the details of it. And I know that this information speaks differently to different individuals that have different areas of interest. But my hope is that by going through some of this information and making the information available, that it will bring those types of issues such as gender pay equity and racial equity issues to the forefront for a robust discussion between employees and, of course, our elected officials. This is a similar chart to the one that we just went over, but this chart shows the average salaries and ratio of earnings of full-time employees, excluding part-time employees. And so as you can see by this graphic that the ratios shrink a little bit, but the overall message is still pretty much the same, that the minority groups that are female tend to earn less than those white counterparts. And likewise, our minority groups tend to earn overall less than our white counterparts. This concludes this part of the presentation. I would like to thank the City Manager's Office and the Human Resources Department, City Attorney's Office, and city employees that participated in this work. And I could move into the next presentation if you like, or I can tackle some questions if you want to jump in on some of these right now.
Members, I think if it's all right with you, let's get the entire presentation completed, and then we'll turn it to the public and the council for a full discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you. And so you should be able to see now the results of the Research and Analysis Division's work on the employee survey. The Office of the City Auditor conducted the survey from February 25th, 2020 to March 24th of 2020. We distributed the survey to city employees through their city email account. We received a total of 787 survey responses. City employees provided responses to questions that measured employee perception of inclusion and work environments, provided informative feedback in open-ended response questions, and provided demographic information that allow the city to expand inclusion measures. The results of the survey are summarized in the 21-page report. We will go over a few pages to provide a sense of some of the feedback that we received through the survey.
Jorge, can I ask a question?
Sure.
This is Vice Mayor Harris. Well, actually, I'm not Vice Mayor anymore, Councilmember Harris. So the 787, that is roughly between 1/5 and 1/6 of our total employee count?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make that clear, you know, the sample amount. I think
Yeah,
that's
we did.
important when looking at these kind of figures.
Yeah, we did make it available to everyone, and that was the number of responses that we got. We were hoping for about 400 to 500 responses, so we were actually pleased to have almost reached 800. Of course, we plan on doing the survey from time to time and hope to build upon that on future iterations of this.
Thank you, Jorge.
Yep. So on this first slide, we're looking at workplace climate. And as you can see on the page, there's a lot of information here. I'll just highlight a few things. 70% of employees feel they are treated fairly in their department. 92% of employees are proud to work for the city of Sacramento. 55% of employees feel they have an equal opportunity for growth and development. On this slide, we focus on workplace development, benefits, and policies. And on this slide, we highlight that 37% of employees feel promotions are fair within their departments. 45% of employees feel the city has an ongoing commitment to equal pay, merit increases, and benefits. And 65% of employees consider their work-life balance good or excellent. This page focuses on harassment in the workplace. And this one, I'd like to highlight that 23% of employees witnessed discriminatory behavior in the last 12 months. 12% of employees felt excluded due to their ethnicity or race. 7% of employees witnessed unequal treatment due to a person's sexual orientation. On this slide, we highlight some of our cross-tabular results. Cross-tabular results reanalyze the information from a perspective of sexual orientation, ethnicity, and sex. What I would highlight here is that 66% of LGBTQ+ employees feel they belong to the city compared to 75% of heterosexual employees. 71% of white employees feel ethnic diversity is a priority within the city compared to 53% of employees of color. On this slide, we highlight some of the employee comments that we received. And we received over 400 comments from our city employees. This page provides just an example of some of the comments that we received. For example, when we asked to provide ways to make the workplace a more positive environment for an employee, one employee stated, "The city offers great training courses on various laws in place to protect certain groups of persons against discrimination and harassment, but it may be helpful to provide managers with courses on how best to address some of this behavior when it's not bluntly practiced, or how to create work culture / environments that help reduce discrimination and harassment." Survey respondent reported demographics are reflected on this slide. And as shown here, 38% identified as cisgender women, 37% identified as cisgender men, 21% preferred not to say, 42% were white, 10% were Latino, Latinx, and 7% were Black, while 6% were Asian. And 67% were heterosexual, 19% preferred not to say, and 11% were LGBTQ+. This concludes my presentation. I would like to thank the City Manager's Office and the Human Resources Department, the City Attorney's Office, and the city employees that participated in this survey for their time and assistance in completing this work. I know Ami Barnes is also on the call, and I believe she would like to state a few words as well in regards to some of the work that the Office of the City Manager's Office has been doing in response to the city's efforts to be more reflective of our community.
Let's take Ami Barnes next again, then we'll open it up.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Happy New Year to you all. I'm going to share my screen now. So good afternoon again. My name is Ami Zensale Barnes. My pronouns are she and they. I serve as the Diversity and Equity Manager for the city. I'm here along with Lainey Milstein from the City Manager's Office. I want to give gratitude and thanks to the Office of the Auditor in developing this new and improved Workforce Diversity and Salary Trend Report. This, along with the DEI Inclusion Climate Survey that you just were presented to, will be and serve as foundational data points for our work moving forward. So I'm here to and excited to share some overall comments and plans that we engaged with in 2020 and that we have already underway for 2021. And in this first year of implementation, as I said, this report will serve as a foundational mark for us moving forward. As Jorge mentioned in the presentation, being reflective of the city has been transformed as our workforce equity definition. And this is adapted from the city of Seattle. And this workforce equity definition primarily came from our work with the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. It's important to have a vision of what we see our work moving forward, particularly as we develop citywide efforts across departments and within departments. Our workforce equity goal reflects the diversity we and the community that we serve. The result of our endeavors are to ultimately increase high level of productivity, have effective service delivery and communication, cultivate diverse talent to meet diverse needs and adapt to changes that are ever constant, foster innovation, and of course, create an inclusive and holistic workplace and work culture. And just to highlight some of the data for us that was already was presented in greater detail, we see that in taking that workforce equity goal, we want to reflect the communities that we serve. So these numbers of people of color, the residents is 68%, our city full-time, part-time workforce is 48%, city management employees are 43%. For gender, our residents are 50%, women, city full-time and part-time workforce are 34% and 39%. So we know that our workforce equity goal is to make sure that as close and as with a great sense of urgency to have these numbers be more reflective and in closer parity. The other thing I'd like to highlight from the data that's already been presented is the legacy and the new hires. As was shared, the legacy hires are the staff that were hired before July 1st, 2019, and then the new hires after July 1st. I really want to commend the city auditor for establishing the benchmark of July 1st so that we could start to see these trends in a very realistic and very tangible way. So here I just kind of highlighted, as you can see, those hired prior to July 1st and those hired after, we are trending in a more diverse manner. However, when we look at 2020 in city management, we look at the Hispanic and Black communities, and then we look at our Asian community there, you see growth in the Hispanic and Black community from legacy hires as compared to new hires. But when you look at the Asian community in the management hierarchy piece, you don't see any hiring. And the reason why I wanted to lift that up is that the nature of the work that we're going to be engaging in moving forward is going to need to take a deep dive in understanding what is the story and the narrative, the policies, the procedures, and the practices that support why these numbers are moving in a positive direction and why they might be moving in a negative direction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that work as we move forward. Here for women and gender, we see, again, just an overall big, broad scope change. Our city workforce, 16 women, 36, a little bit of a dip or decrease in 2020. But then we see a growth of 4% of city management employees being more reflective of women. So again, we have these numbers now and this baseline trend of looking at 4 years, but our work this year in 2021 is understanding why these trends are happening so we can replicate best practices, and then we can also identify inequities and things that are not working so that we can move closer in parity to our residents. And here I wanted to kind of begin to talk about a little bit of the framework and the work that is moving forward. This is a very jam-packed visual, but I'm hoping it kind of can give an illustration or a visual to the work that we are engaging in the city manager's office, particularly out of my office, the diversity and equity office. So we have here the Global Diversity Inclusion Benchmark Model. This is a model that frames the work and the decision-making for my office in meeting everything from unique needs to this overarching goal of workforce equity. It has 4 major components. It has foundation, it has internal, external, and bridging. The workforce equity goal that we are engaging with is primarily in the dimensions of foundation and internal. And so the workforce data metrics and collection is extremely important in us being data-driven and being able to apply a racial equity lens to our work, as well as a gender equity lens. So the workforce diversity and salary trend report, the diversity dashboard, the DEI inclusion survey will all serve as foundational data points for our departments as we engage in this work. And so it is extremely important that in DEI work and racial equity work that we have a results-based approach. Then we move into the internal part, which is the equity and inclusion leadership, awake to woke to work. This is our capacity building training. It is a direct collaboration of my office, city manager's office, and HR, particularly HR organizational development, HROD, to provide a variety of trainings and learning experiences and building capacity for staff around DEI and equity work. Then we have the plan, which is the 14 outcome action strategies, department equity profiles, and I'll go into a little bit more of that. And then, of course, as was mentioned earlier in the presentation, the Sacramento, City of Sacramento, we joined in 2018 the Government Alliance on Race and Equity to begin our foundational work in applying a racial equity lens to our workforce equity strategies. This is to give you just a visual. This is a screenshot of our current race and gender equity action plan for 2025. We began launching this in late November of 2020. We were delayed. We were hoping to do it earlier in the spring, but we were delayed due to the pandemic. Just wanted to give you highlights of some of the contents of what our plan is. Our plan is 5-year vision of looking at 14 outcome strategies over the workforce continuum. I really want to lift up that our audit reports for our workforce diversity and salary trends are extremely important, but they only tell some of the story. They give us the quantitative. We need to understand the qualitative, the aspects of practice, workplace culture, policies, procedures, and other actions and best practices that we are either not evoking or not implementing. So this is to help really ground in a results-based approach these 14 outcome action strategies that are across the city. So you can see here that this is a template that was developed from the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. And we took that template and added the resources. So each of these elements are extremely important for every department to identify in a very specific manner their challenges, their successes in achieving outcomes, community indicators, action strategies, were they successful, who was burdened, who benefited. And the resources at the bottom is a little bit of a departure from the GARE template that we adapted for the City of Sacramento, because we want this to be a living plan that breathes and grows as our workforce changes, as workforce trends change, and of course, the constant change that we are facing in the Sacramento region. Here's some overall highlights of our plan. The plan was developed through a year-long process that included a 6-month learning cohort with GARE. It is a living document focused on gender and racial equity, bringing into focus workforce equity with an applied racial equity lens. It incorporates ongoing and gaps of work from past work that began prior to 19 and new initiatives that are already underway, some of which was highlighted in the report. It is organized to address gaps along the workforce continuum through 14 outcome action strategies. Our mantra is to reflect the city to better serve the city. And this is the link where the plan can be accessed, so you can take a deeper dive. Now, I just want to highlight a couple of the things that are currently in the works right now in January and February of this year. Each department will be asked to develop equity core teams that would be responsible for several certain actions. The design of it is to be, if you looked at our organizational chart, each department will probably have an equity core team that will be 3 to 9 staff. They will establish 2 co-leads, and it will be representative of the hierarchy as well as the positionality, as well as the race and gender makeup of the department. And these are some of the considerations that the executive team will be exploring actually when we meet this Friday as they develop their equity core teams over the next month. Their deliverables are very specific. They will be asked to conduct research and assessment findings, which they will be developing a department profile, and they will be doing a self-assessment of, which is a 43 equity point assessment roadmap tool, which is already a template tool to assess 6 different categories for the departments that all center around workforce development. They will be asked to identify department goals and strategies out of that assessment to help address gaps and things that are going well, to reinforce things that are going well and those that are not. All of those will be asked to support the 14 outcome action strategies. And then each department will be providing annual updates on how they are being successful, or what challenges they're encountering, or what capacity gaps might be they encountering to support the race, gender, and equity action plan. This is just a snapshot. I mentioned earlier, training and capacity is a huge part of our efforts to achieve racial equity, as well as race and gender equity in our workforce equity goals. For 2019, we had a total of 300 participants that participated in, I should say, voluntary DEI focused training. We had 3 different primary, in its initial phase, we had 3 specific, I should say, training components. One was dialogues, which was a noontime forum where staff could come together and discuss DEI topics such as microaggressions, tokenism, things of that nature. The next one was a cohort learning experience on the 5 approaches to diversity and inclusion, which is based on the Global Diversity and Inclusion Benchmark Model. And then the third major one, which also was integrated into the leadership, the supervisor series with HROD, was the performance management. And that really discussed how you can utilize performance management to advance inclusion and reduce bias in the workplace. And then due to the COVID experience, we were forced, but at the same time, we were being innovative about how to uplift this race and gender equity action plan and the concepts of racial equity and DEI concepts in a virtual platform. And so in August of last year, we held a 21-day racial equity habit building challenge, and the response was great. We had 257 participants engaged in a daily lesson, and approximately 110-20 folks on Friday M calls to share and learn how their progress on the 21-day racial habit building challenge was impacting their lives and their role here in the city. And here's just a visual of some of the strategies that we will be evoking over the next year in terms of our achieving our workforce equity goals. It's about leveraging our expertise, our department equity assessments, leveraging current and create new data streams, creating a living roadmap to cultivate sector partnership. We really want to support our departments and being innovative of what external partners could help them achieve their racial equity goals, as well as workforce equity goals, particularly around early education and pipeline, and building internships and apprenticeships, building staff capacity on racial equity and having an intersectional approach, and of course, the plan itself. And open to any questions. And I just do want to highlight before, as I wrap up, in regards to the salary trends that were presented, I would like to request that the council members definitely take a look at the city manager response. We have some recommendations there to entertain and look deeply at doing a pay equity audit, so that we could really do a deep dive and truly understand the trends that and the questions that the workforce diversity and salary trend report raises for us, and doing more precise data collection and looking at, I shouldn't say precise, it was done very precisely. What I mean is to consider other factors such as education and tenure, and perhaps do a more adjusted approach in how we look at that and address those trends that we are seeing that the report lifted up. Thank you for your time and attention, and open to any questions.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of information, obviously, for the City Council to digest. Very, very important information from both our equity manager as well as the city auditor. So I want to hear from members. Do we have public testimony?
I have one caller on item number 14.
Why don't we hear from the caller, and then I'm going to call on Mayor Pro Tem Ashby first. Go ahead.
Thank you. May I have a caller, please? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Taylor. I'm representing the City of Sacramento's African American Employee Leadership Council. And on behalf of the AAELC, as we're known, I'd like to thank you, Mayor and Council members, for your commitment to raising citizen consciousness about systematic racism and racial injustice within the City of Sacramento. By continuing to work with our diversity manager and participating in GARE, you've expressed your intent to address these issues. AAELC applauds the attention you've given to promoting a workforce pipeline that encourages diversity and inclusion. Nevertheless, we would be remiss if we did not also raise the need to give equivalent, if not even more attention to the issue regarding the hiring and promotion and equitable pay for currently employed women and people of color. Race and gender representation are still not reflective of the city's demographics, with women representing half of the city's population, but only representing 34% of the city's workforce, and African Americans currently only representing 10% of the city's workforce. Despite the city's stated goals of diversity and inclusion, disparate treatment of employees has also made it difficult to retain people of color. Lower compensation for these employees disincentivizes those employees to remain within the city to promote into higher positions and achieve the city's goals. Support and promotion of existing employees is not only good for retaining our current workforce, but shows potential in future employees that the city is a desirable place to not only work, but build a career and thrive. AAELC also requests this council to consider the additional staffing necessary to carry out addressing these systematic inequities. While Ms. Barnes is a very dynamic and capable person, she's still only one person. To truly make the impact proposed by these recommendations and desired by the City of Sacramento, additional full-time staff is necessary. In closing, the City of Sacramento AAELC remains committed to working with this council and city leadership to support this work and all efforts to correct the wrongs of systematic racism and injustice and promote a workforce that celebrates and exemplifies diversity and equity and mirrors the community it serves. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Aubrey. Okay, I do see all the hands raised. Virtually here, I'm going to begin with Jashby.
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, thank you, Ami and Jorge, for your consistent work on this. Little history. In 2015, I really wanted to see a diversity report for the City of Sacramento. I really wanted to understand what the pay gap was for women and what the disparity was for minorities in getting hired and promoted, and how that was all working. And I did not necessarily have a captive audience at the City of Sacramento, but I did arm wrestle Jorge Oseguera to get him to help me. And he did. He was amazing. And so the two of us sort of set out to prove it could be done. And we brought forward a report, and very quickly, the members of the council, once they saw what I was trying to do, jumped on and were really, really helpful. And I think even later that same year, so in 2016, when we actually came out with the report, that same year, we were able to pour some more resources into it. I believe it was even Councilmember Jennings who championed this to add more of the diversity element to that research. And then Councilmember Chenier and I decided this should be an annual audit. And so that's what you're seeing is 4 years of work. It's really 5 years of work, but 4 years of reports. And the reports are kind of like a tree. It started off with me looking at women's issues and then added ethnicity and age and sexual orientation and gender and all these things because of the council adding important components and really becoming a more robust and important and influential conversation. And then we spread away from not just city staff, but to boards and commissions and appointments and all of that to try to make sure that, you know, we're holding ourselves to a higher standard and that we're leading by example in the city of Sacramento. I have a love-hate relationship with this report every time it comes forward because I love that we're doing it and I'm so proud that we're doing it. And I hate the results every single time. It irritates me and frustrates me every time I see it. And I complain to Jorge every single time we do this because I'm frustrated that we're not making progress faster. And I hear what the African American Employee Group is saying. Aubrey's amazing. She's been here that whole time, by the way. And Ami is one person. I don't know if we need to add additional resources to that department. I don't know if we need to add resources to particular departments. But I do know this. After 4 years of looking at these studies, I know that we need to do more. And I don't mean more research. I don't mean more analysis. I mean more action. I mean more bias training. I mean, I want to be confused by the number of programs that we're adding in our system to make sure that people are being treated fairly and equitably when they go for raises or promotions. And I haven't seen enough of that yet. I really, really, in the next report from you guys, probably in the next few months, would really like to see some suggestions about action items that the council could take to close these gaps. I mean, on some of these numbers, we're still $15,000 to $20,000 a year apart for men and women working in the city of Sacramento. And I know Ami is suggesting a deeper dive, and I think that's wise. We should do all the things that they're saying, but I don't want to operate like a university that's studying the issue. I want a greater sense of urgency behind the issue with some stated outcomes attached to timeframes. Now we have 4 years of data, so there's no excuse for us to not be able to say, hey, in 2 years' time, we ought to be able to make this percentage of improvement, or in 3 years' time. I don't think, that we want to sit back and wait for our daughters to solve this problem. I know I don't. I do not, right? And I know Jorge doesn't either because he tells me this all the time. This is our constant tagline when we talk about this item. We always end by saying, for our daughters.
That's right.
And I mean it. And I don't want to just have 4 years of data. I want to have 4 years of improvement. And so there are now 2 women on this council with me. So we're 3 times the power on this issue. I want to push. I really want to push. So Ami, bring us your dream list of action items, right? Bring it to me. Tell me how much it would cost. Tell me what we could do. What are the top 5 things we could do to force closing that gap? The McKinsey study for the last 2 years that looks at women across the entire globe has really identified the same exact pinpoint that all of our data shows, which is that women fall behind through microaggressions as the cause. And the place where they fall behind is the first level of promotion into the management or supervisorial level. That's true in the city of Sacramento, and it's true in almost every category of employment in the McKinsey study for the last 2 years of research. So whatever it is that is causing microaggressions, which, by the way, if you're thinking, I don't know what that means, it's basically death by 1,000 cuts. It's, commenting that her outfit isn't appropriate for work. It's making women feel uncomfortable in a workspace, so much so that all of that adds up to an error of not being the best or most qualified person to move up into the next level position. It's about an unreasonable and sometimes unattainable standard that is overlaid on certain categories of people and not on others. And those microaggressions build up to a person lacking confidence and to the people around that person lacking confidence in that person, and therefore they don't promote. So we need to get to the root of how we pull apart those microaggressions, how we create an equitable standard for advancement at that first tier in particular of management and supervision. So I'm happy to move both reports forward today. I'm excited to hear from my colleagues, especially the new colleagues with fresh eyes on this issue. But I would like to ask, Mayor, with your blessing, and this is I should say the members of this council that have been here before have been really good on this issue. They really have. But I want to do more, and I'm sort of fatigued with getting analysis back. So I'd like to add to my motion here as we accept these reports and move forward that I would like to see within 3 months, AMI work with Jorge and the department heads to come back with at least 5 specific action-oriented suggestions that this council could consider for how to close the gap. Okay? Thank you, Mayor.
Good. That's been moved. We'll wait a second, but let's hear from the other members who have their hands raised first. I have Councilmember Eric Guetta.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'll go ahead and second the motion here. First, I do want to thank Ami Barnes and Jorge Oseguera on their joint work on this effort. And I think, one, I want to right off the bat acknowledge the work that's happened since we began these efforts. Thank you, Ami, again for your work. You've done tremendous as a one-stop shop here for our city. And you can see that from the July 1st, 2019 numbers that we see in the audit report. And the fact that you pushed the city to be part of GARE, to move in that direction, using your expertise in your previous job has helped us. And the mayor and I both went and participated in the Government Alliance for Race and Equity workshop over the holidays. And it was and I've continued to participate in that, but it showed that we as a city have already began to move in that direction and make sure that race and equity is part of our management and practices. But I want to take a little step back to 2015, because during that time, Jorge, thank you very much for working on the diversity audit to outline an issue that was brought up by many of the Black and Latino staff in the city about the lack of inclusion, the lack of issues affecting them. And during that time frame, 2 big issues came about. One that was brought up was that the numbers needed to be disaggregated because there was concern by both the Black and Latino staff that it was women of color who would be who are on the bottom of the wage scale, bottom of access to management opportunities, and a serious concern about where they fit in the city operation. The second piece was a request by the Latino stakeholder group who wanted a diversity and equity manager. And I do want to thank all of those who participated, many of folks who were retired individuals who are experts in the HR field. And because of that effort, we advocated for the diversity equity manager, which we have now, Ami Barnes. So great, we have a diversity equity manager that's provided internal leadership, but we need to back her up. And I've heard that from the African American Employee Council that there needs to be more support for the work that Ami Barnes is doing to be able to achieve these results. But when I think about where we are today and that first audit, Jorge, can you pull up, if you go to figure 29, I think it's page 39 of your audit of the entire staff report for members of the council. I believe it's page 42 of 110 of the staff report, but figure 29. And this is one that you've been working on, that is the ethnic race difference between city population and the full-time employees. So that figure 29. So that way folks in the public can also follow along. And I know you got a lot of heat early on from putting this map out, but it showed how far along we were, where we were as a city. Did our city represent its constituency? And this is the picture of today, which is better. It's a lot better than 2015, 2016, but still it shows that we have a city staff that in a city operation that does not reflect its city. And particularly when it comes to the Latino population in a city like Sacramento. So there's been improvements in a lot of the areas. I want to thank Ami for that work and that effort, but still there is a lot more work to do here. And so I want to make sure that when it comes to recruitment, when we're looking at recruitment, and this is a picture about recruitment, what are we doing to address this issue? Now, some of the numbers here and the colors also depend on the size of the department. Some departments are larger and smaller, so one person, for example, the city auditor here, there's 8 people there. So very much agreeing with Jorge Oseguera being one of the Latinos in the city. Obviously that skews it, but still, I think this shows us an observation of the work that needs to be done. Jorge, the next piece I'd like you to go to is figure 67, which is page 72 of the report, page 75 of 110 of the staff report. But figure 67, which is the full-time city employees and the earnings here. Now there's been, criticism that, well, you can't look at wages between gender because we have so many fire department and police officers, public safety officers that are men, so it skews the numbers. But I'm glad that you actually broke apart the numbers by pulling out our sworn public safety officers, because this gives us a picture of still our city employees, rank and file city employees here. And what it shows is still this issue where our employees of color are on the further end of the salary scale. And women of color, going back to 2015, what was brought to us by the Latino Stakeholder Group and AAELC, is that this is a major issue we have to address. The fact that we still have, even in this number here, showing that, if you look at race becomes an important factor here. This, I want my members of the council to remember this, because we're going to have this conversation next week when we start talking about race equity. Because even in this picture here, female white women still make more than South Asian, Pacific Islander, Black and Latino men and women. So there's still an issue of race in this conversation that we have to take a look at. Clearly there's a wage gap in gender, which is an important work that we have to continue. But here is an important finding that I think we need to have a conversation about, continue the conversation at the next council meeting when we're talking about race and equity here. What this shows in combination with these two figures and the audit, and the survey, it gives us a picture of what the staff is talking about. And I want to highlight some things that after I met with our city employees, are both Latino and African-American employees, the concerns that were brought up about upward mobility in the city, management opportunities, because if we're going to make changes in wage and salary, there has to be viable promotional opportunities so that our employees can move up that wage scale. Many of our employees who are in maintenance, who are in public works, who are doing the frontline work for us as well, are employees of color, and they're on the lower wage level. So there's a serious conversation we have to work at. Most of our youth employee, our Parks Department employees are in that area. So I think this is an important piece there for us to remember. So recommendations, and where do I see here going forward? There's a classification study that's undergoing here. I want to make sure that when we're doing this classification study, that we be careful about reclassifying employees where they are demoted. And I've heard concerns, and I don't know where their validity is, so I'd like the city manager to look at this, that management employees some who have been employees of color have had their classification reclassified, and then their ability to be in management has changed. And all those factors are important because they relate to wage as well. So I want to be concerned and want to make sure that we dive deeper into the classification study and also on the recruitment side. So there's two pieces, I think, if we're going to address a city that reflects a city government that reflects its city. What are we doing about recruitment? Making sure that we're doing the appropriate work to recruit diverse communities, our own people into the city. And two, what are we doing about supporting our own employees to move up into the management level so that we can address particular this information that is posted by Figure 67. So I feel optimistic because of the trends that have occurred by the work that Ami Barnes and their staff have done, but I'm still very, very troubled of where we are in our current state, and we have a lot more work to do. The recommendations, again, my recommendation here, Ami, is and to the city manager and the city auditor, is that we sit with the stakeholders of our employees and also our labor partners as well to talk about how we can do a better job on addressing this wage gap issue too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll go in council order here, I think. Councilmember Laloy.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you very much for this valuable information to Mr. Jorge and Ami. I couldn't agree more with Mayor Pro Tem Angelique Ashby regarding her suggestion and at least a minimum of 5 items to be brought that we can improve this situation. My question is, when this study was done, as far as the pay gap is considered, was there a study on when these applicants were hired, at what timeline one was hired versus another, you know, as far as the pay gap? And also, as far as the equity aspects of it goes, has a study been done to see how we get the information out there to let our residents know that certain positions are available? As Council Member Gura alluded to, what are our procedures of recruitment? Is that something that we need to improve on to make sure that we can change these graphs to a certain degree? And when it comes to promotion, how active are we within the city to announce, you know, certain positions coming up for our current associates to apply for this to apply for this position to move up? So those are my concerns. You know, as far as the pay gap, do we take into consideration the hiring date? As far as balancing out the equity aspects of it with different ethnicities, how are we recruiting and sending this information out? And that's my little segment. Thank you very much.
Council member, this is Lainey Milstein, Assistant City Manager. I'd like to respond to your question around pay and the analysis. I think our response, and you'll see it in what the City Manager's Office provided, it's at the end of the auditor's report, is that this analysis was unadjusted. So it did not account for time and grade. It doesn't account for education. It is not comparing the same type of work to the same type of work. So it's not comparing apples and oranges. It is simply all men and all women, all race, all gender. Some of the charts do disaggregate it a bit. We undertook the exercise 2 years ago, though, to go by every class, and we looked at every single classification in the city. We looked at men, women, and ethnicity. And where we found anything that exceeded 5%, we went back and looked at time and grade. We went and looked at certifications, and we looked at discipline. And if we couldn't figure something out on our own, we went to and we said, why is this odd? Why do we perhaps have a man and a woman doing the exact same job exact same time and grade, exact same education, but not getting the same pay. There were spare few of those. I think you could count them on one hand. And if there wasn't an explicit reason for it, then salaries were adjusted. So we're comfortable that within the city, people who are doing the same job with the same educational background and the same time and grade are being compensated at the same level. However, we do agree that we need to do a deeper dive into pay equity to ensure that there are things that we're not missing. And we all agree with the auditor staff and me and myself that none of us are pay equity experts. And so we would like that to become part, our next step after the class and comp study, to figure out if we have the right people doing the right jobs. That was something that Councilmember Guerra alluded to. It will tell us whether that is the right management classification to be doing the particular specific work for a department. And then people will be either placed in that position or the appropriate position. So we really do want to have someone who is a professional do the pay equity study. I also think this may have happened before your tenure. We have worked very hard to create and deploy throughout the city a hiring manual that goes from recruitment to promotion to how do you set someone's salary, who do you have on an interview panel, how do you do that? That was one of the things, you know, Councilmember Ashby, that is an actual tangible item that has been delivered about how we try to ensure that there is equity within the process through application, through hiring, through promotion. And an example I'll give to you of that is we now do blind applications. When you are a hiring manager that is reviewing a set of applications, you don't see the individual's name, you don't see where they live. You may be able to pick out if they put the date of their degree when they graduated, but you don't know who's applying. So you can't say where people have said previously, you know, I don't think a woman would be good for that job, or, oh, that person has a different name that I'm not used to seeing. We've taken that all out of the equation. Until you identify which ones you want, you don't get any further identifying information. So that's one example of a concrete action aside from the hiring manual that we've taken. And some of the changes that folks may have heard about reclassifications might have been related to, we had a Fair Labor Standards Act audit about are we paying people fairly? And some of that was done by Liebert, Cassidy and Whitmore, an external law firm, said that we don't have the right people in the right classifications. Some people should make overtime, some people shouldn't. That's a federal law. We don't have any say over who really is in those classifications, and whether they became what was classified as management or not was the result of that audit, not necessarily a decision that was made relative to specific individuals on an ad hoc basis. So, and then just lastly, all of our positions are posted online, promotional or not. And we encourage all of our employees to always look at what positions might be available and what they might want to pursue, and to work with their management on how to get to that next step. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Lowly, if I could just add one thing to that.
Yes, I understand. We want to move on here, but go ahead, please, Mr. City Auditor. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just mentioning that one of the complications in all of these types of analysis is that you know, there are kind of trends and tendencies for certain ethnicities and certain genders to fill lower wage salaries more than others. And even when you're comparing like position to like position, a difference in salary may not be evident in that kind of a comparison, but it still nonetheless creates a bit of a concern if a large portion of a particular subgroup populates your lower wage positions or isn't able to promote up. And so it is a complex problem that requires a multifaceted approach to really get at the root cause of why it is that our data is reflecting what we're currently seeing. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff and City Auditor, for the work that you've done. And Ami, I do just want to start by saying that I could not echo strongly enough Councilmember Ashby's comments about wanting to see numbers, wanting to see recommendations. How can we strengthen this so we're not just updating the same audit report every year and seeing the same trends? Because I think unless we believe there's some inherent skill difference between genders or between races, these charts should look like our population. And it doesn't always mean that there's an overt bias happening at the point of hire. It could also be a matter of outreach. It could also be a matter of what qualifications we're listing positions in and whether they're attainable to different folks. So I think I'm really excited to see this conversation continue to evolve and really support the motion as presented by Councilmember Ashby. I do want to just note a couple of things on the audit and then a couple of things on the survey. First, I want to note that the audit doesn't capture the full range of genders. You know, not everybody on our staff identifies male, female. And so I think moving forward, that would be a great addition to that breakdown of data. And then I want to focus on the survey because I'm so glad to see this because we know that numbers only tell us part of the story, and the qualitative story here told us something that I think a lot of us, as you can probably hear in our comments, are really bothered by. You know, when you see something that says 26% of people think promotions are fair, immediately my mind says, well, 74% might not then, right? And that's something that really alarms me as someone who's working to try to promote equity. But I do want to see some adjustments in framing because I don't know how aware we were that this overall framing of white versus or heterosexual versus is very centering of whiteness and heteronormity. And so I think the way we present the survey data, I would love to see the crosstabs. I would love to just see more raw data so that we can analyze this a little bit more deeply. And the way it's framed, and also like white versus people of color, right? Like people of color of different races don't always experience things the same way. And so how can we try to be more open and with that raw data so we can really understand what's happening? And, you know, I have questions about whether we got to a representative sample of staff. I know 700 is a lot, but with the staff of 4,700, you know, I want to make sure we're capturing everybody, maybe breaking out the survey results by department even, so we can start to understand if there's specific, more urgent things, so that like Lainey and our, you know, city manager, assistant city manager, sorry, and Howard can like work on together. So those are some broad responses that I want to say, and something like prefer not to say in the context of witnessing harassment, right? You know, if you have a bunch of people saying, I prefer not to say, like that strikes me in its own way. That's not a normal survey response where it's just like, I don't have anything to say. If someone says, I prefer not to say, that worries me. So I'd love to see the questions as they were presented and the answers so that we can get a better idea of maybe what was happening there and the raw data in total. And just to reaffirm, I mean, I know we're doing a lot to make sure new hires are aware of their rights, and I appreciate all the trainings, Ami, that you're talking about, and really excited to see that move forward, and super excited about the equity core team concept, and want to encourage us to think about, a lot of staff mentioned the African American Employee Leadership Council, and I've just met this group and I'm super excited that they're here, and I want to know why we don't have more, right? Like, why don't we have more subgroups of employee associations, and can we be doing something to try to promote that so that there's spaces for staff to feel supported amongst each other as they work at the city. So those are my broad comments, and thank you for the opportunity. And Ami, really looking forward to working with you on this and seeing what we can do to make it better. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Vang.
Thanks, Mayor. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Well, first, I just want to say thank you to staff, to Jorge and Ami, just for your hard work on this workforce audit to really provide vital information, not just for the mayor and council, but for the public. Ami, I really appreciate what you have been able to lift up in terms of areas of improvement. And in particular, I just want to call out the work on separating legacy employees versus new hires, because I believe that can really begin to tell us how we're doing as we move forward. You know, the purpose of an audit is always to identify areas of improvement. But if we don't have concrete action plans with benchmarks, we won't be able to hold ourselves accountable, right? And so, you know, I absolutely agree with Councilwoman Ashby. She touched on many of the points that I was going to note and ask as well. And I couldn't agree more, right? We need to make sure we have a solid action plan with yearly benchmarks so that we can set ourselves up also for success. One thing I did want to mention mention to my colleagues as well is that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. And under the challenging situation of COVID, what I've read in terms of what I've read in research, in the news, on the ground with constituents, is that many workers locally and in the state are really struggling to do their jobs. And the pandemic has really intensified challenges that women, in particular Black, Latino, women of color, already face, right? And I'm wondering if city staff have analyzed this. I know this is the audit, but have we seen any employees in the city of Sacramento that have left the workforce completely? Or, are we seeing have we analyzed what kind of impacts we're seeing just on our employees given COVID? I think that's also something that we have to make sure we keep front and center as we're thinking about this. The other piece I also wanted to mention was I want to, really want to uplift what the comments that Councilmember Guerra brought up in terms of pay inequities, right? That it's not just by gender, but also by race, and how our multiple identities, really impacts one's ability in terms of pay, but mobility in their career. And I do believe we definitely need to do a deeper dive in looking at our policies and our traditions, right? Traditions in City Hall that have maintained these type of outcomes. So in addition to the COVID question, I'm also curious to know if we are actually able to disaggregate data even more, and in particular around Asian Americans in the city of Sacramento. I really appreciate staff being able to pull out Filipino, Pacific Islanders, but Asian Americans is an incredibly diverse community, and we have different experiences entering the workforce, right? And particularly, Southeast Asian compared to East Asian, and I think it's really important to make sure that we have data around that as well. So that's two questions. And the last comment is really around the survey results. It was noted, I actually do think the survey result was great, especially the qualitative piece and the quotes that, you've been able to pull out, and employees being able to share with us just their lived experience being a part of the workforce. But similar to Councilwoman Katie Valenzuela, when she mentioned about the stats, it was noted that 55% of employees felt that they have an equal opportunity for growth and development. And the first thing that came into my head was, oh my gosh, that means 45% of our employees don't feel that there's an opportunity for growth and development in this city, right? And so we have a lot of work to do, right? But I do want to say thank you, because if we don't have this information, we don't know how to move forward. And so thank you so much, staff, just for your work. But if folks can also answer those questions that I had before, that would be great. Around the COVID, we've seen just kind of struggles with employees, and in terms of data breakdown for Asian Americans.
Council members Vang and Valenzuela, I think it's important that because you aren't aware of this, one of the things that we get stuck in is that we have explicit reporting requirements to the federal government, and they only include certain categories. And one of the things, an initiative we've been working on, is how do we collect that data that will give us more detail around gender, sexual orientation, as well as more detailed within the ethnic categories. That's certainly something that we should look at, and we're trying to capture that. It will all be self-reporting, because we are required to do the federal reporting, which requires an element. If someone doesn't self-report, we identify, which makes me very uncomfortable, but that's the federal law. But the rest will be self-reporting, but I think that's a really good place for us to continue to move forward on. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other council members? I know as I've been listening here, I've been grappling with a couple of things. One is this dichotomy that over the last year or two, especially since 2019, it is good to see the forward progress and some of the reduction in the gaps. Obviously, that's what we want. And yet, on the other hand, the perpetuation of longstanding practice leaves us with still significant pay gaps, and many of our populations, our diverse populations, being underrepresented when it comes to city employment. And then I grapple with the question that Councilmember Ashby and others have raised about action, right? And of course, we want more action. But it begs the question for me, what is the role of the policymakers here? What is it? Obviously, we set a tone. And by having this important discussion and pushing and saying we're not nearly satisfied, even if we're pleased with some of the progress, that sets a tone. But I guess when I come down to it, when I think about concrete action, this is the question that I want to ask. Quotas are disallowed by Proposition 209. I understand that. But why aren't we, or are we, and maybe it isn't as clear as it could be, why aren't we setting benchmarks for where it is and what it is we want to achieve? Why aren't we saying that our benchmark for 2021 is to reduce the discrepancy, how it's measured in that one very revealing page here, by X%? And then we are accountable to our community, we're accountable to our city staff, the staff is accountable to us as policymakers, to meeting that benchmark. You can't do it as a quota, and I understand that. But that, I think, is maybe the piece that is missing here, because if you don't know where you want to go to, then you're never clear whether or not the progress you're making is good, marginal, or great. I suppose when we're at complete parity with the population, we will know that we have achieved something very significant. But why not benchmarks? Or are they embedded in here in a way that just don't see or understand? Let me get the answer from staff. I'll turn it over to Councilmember Harris.
Is it okay if I
Yeah,
address
go.
the council? Okay, thank you. Appreciate all of the comments by the council members, and thank you. I want to be very clear about what we're being asked to deliver in 3 months, but something I think that might have been remiss in my presentation is that we currently have approximately 70-page race, gender, and equity action plan. The slide that I showed, there's a link to the entire plan that is for public view. Those are our vision in 14 areas across the workforce continuum. Each department will be asked to identify specific benchmarks, specific goals, specific action strategies that they will work on an annual basis. Then at the end of the year, they will be asked to submit the progress on that. And that is, the plan has been really the central focus and capacity building that we've been engaging from the GARE work. So I'm sorry, I apologize if that wasn't lifted up, but we do have an extensive and robust and very detailed plan of how we're not just going to go about the recruitment piece, but we also have goals and benchmarks and strategies to be identified by the departments to look at early education outreach to high school and college, outreach pipeline to youth of color and women of color and women. We also have strategies around recruitment and job specs. We also have an extensive hiring process or goals around 4 aspects of just the hiring process. So those 14 outcome strategies will become our benchmarks for the next 5 years that you will see in tandem with this report.
So I think that's great. All really vital, because what you're really doing, I think, in sum and substance, is you're trying to change a culture from within. And I think that's really good and great and appropriate. But I think the question that's being raised, is it enough? Because the benchmarks that you are referring to are inputs. What I'm asking is whether or not we should have benchmarks that actually commit us, at least in intent, and again, we're all accountable in various ways to the public, for actually reducing these disparities by specified percentages and numbers by category, because I don't see that. And so it's very much of an input that, and the work that I think is being done from the inside is really good and powerful and necessary. But it isn't that public facing, because aside from this report, we don't really know where it is we are asking of not just you, but the entire city to move to and toward. So that's what I mean by benchmarks.
And Mayor, I think you make a really good point, and it's something that we've all shown interest in the past. It's obviously a complex situation in regards to, obviously not violating, anything that might be considered a quota or something to that effect. What I would suggest is that we incorporate this into what Councilmember Angelique Ashby suggested in terms of coming back with 5 recommendations for how to accelerate this advancement that the city is seeking, and work with our city attorney's office to assess, what we might be able to do to quantify where the city intends on going in the future and bring that back to council.
Okay. City Manager Chin, then Jeff Harris, and then I see.
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo where Ami made the comment about the Racial Gender Equity Action Plan. It might be for this update in 3 months. We can, in all likelihood, we can come back sooner than 3 months. I think what we would like to do, and I would recommend that we work with Ami, City Attorney, to figure out what items in the actual plan that's already been developed and implemented that we can bring forward more quickly, and what resources that would take. In addition to that, at mid-year, I will have a request to add additional staffing for Ami's shop to help with this work. But make no mistake, it's not just Ami as a single one-person show here. She has the support of the HR department and all the other departments in the city, including everyone in my office. And in fact, that's what this council demanded, that this position report to the city manager's office. So there's the reach throughout the organization. And one other thing I'll leave with, and I don't want to make this have it sound defensive in any way, because the work is great. Jorge and our team work well together. We've been working with the HR and all the labor unions to try and figure out how we move this work forward. But I will remind that when we kicked this off 4 or 5 years ago, the discussion we had and the comments that I made were that this is a long-term plan. This is not something that's going to change year over year. It'll be likely 5+ years for us to see more of the tangible results in the overall numbers. But the real number we need to look at, and I think Councilmember Vang hit on this earlier, is that we got to take a look at the hires that occur in a specific year and look at that as the measure of how well we're doing in terms of reflecting the diversity in the community. And that's what Jorge and I have been talking about. Ami showed it in her presentation. So I would just like to recommend that when we come back, I don't know if it's 30, 60 days, that we can work through some of the comments here in open session and bring back a reprioritization of the 5-year plan that Ami has put together. And we've been vetted through all the various stakeholder groups, including external, and then make some recommendations on resources and how we could move more quickly on some of those recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Apparently the raised hand function on my Zoom app is not working, so I had to raise my hand. I think I need to download a new version. Look, there's one piece that's missing to this really extensive conversation. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but we have to also look at how many opportunities are available to change. We've had very little turnover in our staff year over year. We've had a hiring freeze, since COVID came on. So that needs to be analyzed as well. I texted Jorge about that, and I think he agrees that that is a data piece that is very important. How many opportunities do we have to hire to affect change as we go forward? It's a very important data piece. And what really would help with this discussion is a collation of the action plan with this new data that we've developed, because that's the complete conversation. What we have is council members reacting to this new data. Ami's already been working on it and working hard on it. So I'll just leave you with this, and this is just channeling Councilmember Carr, who I miss dearly. Love having Mai here, but Larry would always say, what do we want to achieve and how much are we willing to pay to get there? Which I think is really what what the mayor has paraphrased. You know, how can we achieve it? But a really important piece is how many opportunities do we have to make change year over year? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mayor,
Okay.
can I also add, just to add to Councilmember Harris's point? I think he absolutely make a good point on the opportunities. And if we are to look at the opportunities, I would also like an analysis of when you look at the opportunities that are given, let's look at the hiring for those opportunities, because I think that would tell us a story as well. And so I think I absolutely agree, you know, that there are limited positions, right? But as we look at those openings and those opportunities, to also look at the hiring practices of that. So.
Very good. A great discussion.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I just wanted to do two things really quick, clean up my motion a little bit. And before I do that, I just wanted to ask Jorge to answer Mai's question about COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Ashby. In regards to COVID, we don't have direct data on that available through the ECAPS information that is the source of the information for the analysis. But to one of your points that you made earlier, you were alluding to there being an interest in analyzing those individuals that have left the city. And that is something that we've been discussing with the manager's office and with Ami in regards to how we might be able to incorporate that into the next iteration of this type of analysis, so that not only do we see what employees we're hiring in terms of gender and ethnicity and into what types of positions, but also who did we lose? And did we lose individuals that are more of one particular gender or ethnicity than another in a particular profession than another? And I think that will provide yet another facet or perspective on the multiple issues that you need to grapple with when dealing with these types of issues. But that's something that we are anticipating, that we've started to discuss, and that we'd like to incorporate in the next analysis that we're going to do.
Jorge, if there's any way that you could get any component of that when you guys come back in 3 months, I think it would be really helpful for us. I know that Councilmember Valenzuela and Councilmember Vang and I both are inundated often on social media, even with people tagging us in reports and things about how COVID has disproportionately impacted women in the workforce. And I think that's fairly intuitive to most of us. And I think we are interested in finding ways that we can bridge that gap, if at all possible, and or make up for it in our post-COVID days. So if there's any way you could, in some sort of hastily fashion, bring us at least some portion of that data, I think Councilmember Vang's point is really important and also timely right now, because we might be able to do something about it. And then just lastly, on a little bit of cleanup on these 5 points, Ami, you and your tiny but mighty team and your outreach to these department heads, who I know you have a wonderful working relationship with, is phenomenal. And I'm very familiar with your report. I think what I'm asking, you are such a, I don't even want to say student. I call you a professor all the time. In fact, I refer to you as professorial, because it would be so easy for you tomorrow to become, you know, a PhD level instructor on this topic alone. And I think what we need are very specific points out of that 70-page plan. I think we need 5 strong hit points. Which ones do you think, with your expert opinion, to be the ones that would be the most impactful, right? That we haven't done either because of funding or timing or whatever. What do you see as the ones that would give us the most bang for the buck? That's what we're asking for. Right? Make sense? Okay, it's not a criticism of your work. It's more of a, okay, great, help us make it into an outcome. And then the benchmark component, which the mayor laid out very well, talking about forward facing, and Councilmember Valenzuela and Vang also discussed, is extremely important, but it's really in Jorge's shop. So Jorge, need you to come back to us with like, what would be some reasonable and attainable benchmarks and that we could adopt as a committee. And if I'm being really honest, the person on this council who's extremely good at that is Councilmember Chenier. And maybe you could talk to him before coming back to council about how those benchmarks might be received by this body and what, you know, might work for us moving forward. He's been the leader of that particular type of measurement for us for several years, and I think he would have good input for you. And then my last point, and we can just move on and take the vote, is this. While I'm all for studying this from every angle, I am not interested in any type of analysis that tries to explain away a gap. The gap is there. And I'm not interested in some analysis that comes back and tries to tell us that, certain folks are disadvantaged. And that's why the gap exists. That's the whole point here. The point of this body is to close the gap on the disadvantage and therefore close the gap on the wealth gap and put people in a better place to succeed so that gender and ethnicity and sexual orientation don't somehow become factors for how well a person does in the city of Sacramento. We want it to be equal. So that's my goal here. And Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to clean it up. Thank you.
Okay, very, very good, everyone. Thank you. We have a great and important, not just discussion, but continued call for action. And I just want to summarize one thing. I believe that the city team here is actually doing a great job from the inside out, working to change the culture. And as the city manager said, it is a long-term plan, but there's nothing inconsistent about long-term and intermediate benchmarks along the way so that we are pushing ourselves both from the inside out, but also from the outside in. I define the outside as the public and the elected officials to actually demonstrate that consistent progress that we saw, from in the 1920 numbers. It's not inconsistent in my view. So let's call the roll on the motion.
Mr. Mayor, just one additional comment.
Yes,
I think we all in agreement of what our process and the way we should get there. But equally, I think it's very important to see the individuals that are applying for jobs, what is that ratio? What is that percentage versus being hired? Unless we have the numbers on that, I think any report that we're looking at, we're missing some basic factors. So if a job comes up and 100 applicants apply for it, is 99 of them white male in their 30s that have applied for it, or there is that distinction? So unless we have that kind of data available to us as well, having that data available to us, I think it will make it easier for this council to make certain decisions to minimize that gap. But without that data, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to come up with a benchmark regarding this topic that we all agree on, that we all want the same end result. But I think we require some more additional information prior on entering into the city hall as an employee or supervisor. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Jennings, I may have accidentally missed you. Do you want to make a comment?
I think the comment I wanted to make, Mayor, is I agree with the direction that we're moving in today. The thing I've heard consistently from every council member is there's a sense of urgency that may be that we need to move faster than the plan has us moving right now. And so when you start talking about a 5-year plan, I think that has to change from a 5-year plan to potentially something much shorter. When you start talking about the number of actions that you bring back before the council, I don't necessarily think you limit it to 5. I think you limit it to the number of actions that are going to get the results that you need to get. So I have a sense of urgency. I've seen this problem as long as my colleagues have, and we all have a sense of urgency of moving forward. So that sense of urgency has to be put in the plan. That plan has to come back before the council on a more frequent basis than it comes right now. And that has to be a part of us. This has to become a priority for us to make sure that it happens and not just a once-a-year conversation.
Very good. Thank you. I'm glad we got to your comments as well. Let us call the roll on a separate, is there one motion, Madam Clerk?
Yes, there was one motion on both item 14 and 15.
Okay, then let's call the roll on the item, combined items, please. Go ahead.
The roll call for item 14 and 15, Mayor Pro Tem Ashby.
You froze.
Sorry, yes, yes.
Councilmember Laloe,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chenier,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings,
Aye.
Councilmember Vang,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Aye. All right. Obviously, to be continued consistently as we continue to create a more just city. Thank you. Thank you all very much. All right, that is the formal agenda. Council ideas and questions. I know I want to do an adjourn in memory. I think I'm going to do it first, if that's okay. And then I'll turn it over to colleagues. Man, I was hit hard yesterday when I got the news that longtime city employee Max Fernandez passed away. And Max was the youngest 70-year-old you'll ever meet. He served our city for a number of decades. And I knew him in my first round as a member of the city council when we had the neighborhood services department. And Max led the department after I left, but when I was a councilor from 92 to 98, he was the area manager for Tahoe Park and Southeast Sacramento. And this guy was one of the finest public servants, one of the nicest people I ever met in my life. He was really good at what he did. He loved the community, he loved the neighborhood, and he had such a style and a way about him. He really believed in the connection between the city and its neighborhoods, and was a pioneer in helping launch the neighborhood movement from the city perspective. Everybody loved Max. And I kept in touch with him a little bit over the years. I remember one great occasion after I left the city where we went down together to a Monday night football game, watched the 49ers and the Denver Broncos, and had just a great time together, and kept in touch with him over the years. It's a big loss to the city and a big loss to his wife, Kathy. They were married, I believe, 47 years. And he had a lot of kids and grandkids, and he got ill in November and passed away last week. And I just want to give my condolences to his family and say that from the city family, Max, we'll never forget you. You're a great guy. I will never forget you. And I'd like to adjourn in his memory today. Thank you.
Mayor, I know I'm not next, but I wanted to add a few words about Max, if that's okay. So as some of you know, my wife actually worked to support setting up the neighborhood services department, where Max was an area manager, and knew him well and worked with him. And I've known him for many years, and he came back to work for us as a retired annuitant a number of years ago. He will truly be missed. I mean, he was just a good soul and a fine man. And my condolences and my family's condolences to his family as well. Just a very sad day.
Thank you. Other members here on any other items? I see Councilmember Guerra. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll start off by also sharing my condolences to Max's family. And like you said, he had a warmth that he always showed, and particularly in the District 6 Southeast area, was the embodiment of community organizing and support for folks. So very sad to hear that news and that the loss for Max. I have only one, and I support the adjourn in memory for Max. I have one request from the city manager here. One, I'd like to ask the city's Office of Emergency Management which I understand plays a supportive role here with the county's vaccination efforts, to provide regular updates to our city council on vaccination efforts and numbers in the community. As we further get guidance from the county public health department, I'd like for our fire department and any other designated lead agency to start working closely with our community-based organizations that provide services to some of our communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, to provide all the timely vaccination information. I don't want our city to repeat the mistakes that happened last year, to go through that issue where during the pandemic, we saw that many of our communities got information later. We've done tremendous work with our PIO's office. We've gotten ahead of that. But as the president-elect and our governor have aggressively made statements about pushing out the vaccine, I want to make sure that we don't replicate those issues where we have many communities who are forgotten with that. So, Mr. City Manager, if we can begin that effort and working directly with our community partners, I'd greatly appreciate that.
Councilman Guerra, I've already begun discussions with the interim county exec to get these updates. They provide them on a very regular basis to the board, and I'll be sure to convey that to the mayor and council. And with regard to our fire department, we're working closely with the county public health office to help administer the vaccines, at least to our own employees. They've not yet asked us to do anything beyond that, but absolutely on the outreach efforts, I will coordinate with the county.
Councilman Chenier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Also just have an item. I want to go back and Councilmember Valenzuela brought this up a little bit early on. We currently, this is for the agenda for the 19th, we have 5 major items for that day. And I know you're looking at it 2 o'clock. We have police response, homelessness, emergency shelter ordinance, the general plan, which is a day unto itself, economic development strategy, and racial equity resolution. I want to suggest, even if we have a 2 o'clock and a 5 o'clock, we can't do all these 5 in that day and give them justice. My suggestion for the city manager and for you, Mr. Mayor, would be we take the economic development strategy, pair it with the racial equity resolution. Those 2 things go together. Do those on a special meeting on the 26th, and that'll give us time to really have a good discussion around the homelessness piece, around police response, and then the general plan as well. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. Before we just absolutely commit in stone, let the city manager and I, talk. But I think you're right. We've been, we didn't have a 2 o'clock meeting set, or we did have a 2 o'clock meeting, but it was very light, and so we've already been thinking about how to do the shifting. But I think you make a good point. It really is frustrating to short shrift important discussions here, and let's do everything right. So let us just talk about it. I think your suggestion to me on the face of it sounds very good.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I start, I have 2 things. I just want to make sure we don't forget the public comment not on the agenda. I think there's some folks waiting. Okay.
Never forget that, ever.
Just making sure. I was still not familiar with the order of operations side, but so my 2 things first quickly was around tenant protections. I want to thank Chair Chenier and the staff, including our Director of Government Affairs, Consuelo Hernandez, for working with us to agendize a fuller discussion on the COVID debt and the tenant protection program. And I'm looking forward to having that in the future. But until then, I did want to propose on next week's agenda, which may complicate the discussion we just had, maybe having before the end of the month, an urgent item just to extend the eviction moratorium in the case that AB 15 doesn't pass. Nothing more than that. I know I want to have a fuller discussion, but I think just as a contingency measure, that would give us some certainty. And then the second thing I want to say, piggybacking off of the discussion about a separate conversation about the protest, which I'm really grateful we're moving towards. Something's going to happen this weekend. It's pretty well publicized. A lot of folks are scared. I'm getting a lot of calls. As someone who lives downtown, I'm starting to get really anxious about what to expect this weekend. So I want to encourage the city manager and the chief, if we could send out some sort of communication about what we're planning, some sort of, even if it's just one way, to help give residents some sort of idea as to what we're trying to do to mitigate potential violence from groups coming to Sacramento this weekend. I think that would be really, really helpful. So just want to encourage that.
We are going to, city manager and I are been talking about this very topic. Tomorrow, the council will meet in closed session appropriately to discuss the security-related issues. Obviously, don't want to give away the security plan to those who would come here intending on violence, and so we're going to meet as a group tomorrow to talk about just that. And you're right, we should all be concerned. We should all stay calm, but we need to be concerned, and we will be prepared. Okay, let's get to Jeff Harris. I'm going to be saving Angelique Ashby for last here for a very important special reason. So go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for bringing up Max Hernandez. Everything you said was spot on. He was really beloved. What a great guy. Just two brief announcements. One, the Gardenland Northgate Neighborhood Association meets this Thursday, January 14th at 6:30 via Zoom. You can go to gnna.info for the Zoom address to attend the meeting. I want to give a brief shout out to Police Chief Gary Loesch for achieving the CFO designation, this Chief Fire Officer. It's kind of a special thing. He's done a lot of professional training, and I just wanted to make people aware that he's kind of gone above and beyond here a little bit. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Congratulations, Chief Loesch. Okay, is there any other member aside from Angelique? No? Okay. A very special adjourn in memory. Go ahead.
Okay, Mayor, I'm going to try this. First of all, am I glitching or am I okay on the?
You're okay.
Okay. First, I just want to say thank you to you, Mayor. You have been so patient with me as I've dealt with the loss of my dad over the last month. You've stood in for me, moved things for me, and I have wanted to close a meeting in his honor since he passed, but I haven't been able to get myself to do it. So every meeting, the mayor sends me a note and asks me, how are you doing? You feel like you can do it today? And so today I just want to try. I know there's callers on hold and I appreciate it. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I know many of you have gone through this before, and I'm not alone, and I'm not the only person this year to lose someone really special and important to me. For me in my life, my dad has been my person, always. And when I first won, he swore me into office, and it was so special. Jay was there. And I just have always in my life aspired to be even just half a good person as my dad is. I would love to tell you guys all about him, but I won't do that to you. Some of you know him. He spent his career in foster care. He led foster care for the state of California, worked with Daryl actually in the legislature on foster care reform. He built the country's only foster youth centered high school where kids could live on campus in families. Really just special guy. He was raised in a foster home, but not as a foster youth. My grandparents ran a foster home and adopted lots of kids. And my dad just fell in love with fighting for young people who didn't have their parents and spent his whole life doing that. And I had the honor of running a consulting firm with him and learning from him. And really, I have been through a lot in my life as a single mom and going to law school and Davis and all that, but there's nothing in my life, not even being a mom, that has been more impactful than what my dad has provided for me. And it was really hard to say goodbye. 4 years ago, right after the mayor's race, my dad got diagnosed with dementia, early onset. And he used to come to City Hall a lot, hung out with Jay, hung out with Howard in Howard's office a bunch. And he just slowly, lost parts of himself. So it's like a really long, slow goodbye. My dad did not get COVID, but COVID played a big role in why he died this year, because he wasn't really all the way at the end, but he was so isolated, and his caretaker, his girlfriend, who was really wonderful to him for so many years. She was isolated and they lost a lot of their support system around COVID and a lot of things that were available to them. And so as we struggled to try to support them in a pandemic, my dad got diagnosed with what they call a rapid decline. And he basically did the last few years of dementia all in 4 months. So between July and November, he just very quickly went through those final stages of dementia and died in UC Davis Hospital after 8 days on November 22nd at 5 o'clock. And I have one brother, his name's Brian. And we were there and we were able to be with him. One of my aunts, one of those amazing sisters he had that was adopted, was there too to say goodbye. And lots of people were able to call him, his brother and stuff, and talk to him on the phone. COVID made it really hard, but not impossible. And I'm going to wait to do a service for him until COVID's over with, and I will invite all of you. But it has been life-changing for me. I am a different person now than I believe I was a few weeks ago when I still had my dad. And so thank you, colleagues, for being patient with me. If I was slow to respond or not all the way present, I'm just still processing some of that. And so today, after we hear from our callers, I just want to adjourn really in memory of my dad and thank him for giving me the courage to even try to do this stuff. So thank you, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Angelique. Thank you. Your city family is all with you. We are with you. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing with us and with the public. Really was beautiful. Let us hear from members of the public. We have 12 callers, and then we will adjourn. Memory, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And briefly, I have some board and commission appointments to read to the record to the Sacramento Youth
Why
Commission.
don't you do that now?
Would you prefer to hear from the public first?
No, why don't you read that now and we'll end with the public, okay?
Thank you. To the Sacramento Youth Commission, Kylie Huang, Yajar Israel, Jordan Burkett. To the Sacramento Community Police Review Commission, Michael Wayne Marion Jr., Graciela Castillo Krings, and to the Planning and Design Commission, Maya Wallace. And we do have 13 callers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Q Bach. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a medical student with Sacramento Street Medicine. We're a group of community organizers and medical professionals who provide care to people experiencing homelessness or people who are living outside in Sacramento. And I wanted to call today to talk about the rampant police sweeps and encampment clearings that have been happening across our city. We as a group think this is harmful not only to the individuals who are living at these camps, but also to the general public, to the general greater Sacramento County. Especially at a time when COVID is spiking in our city. Sac County has just reached over 1,000 deaths from COVID. We should be making every effort to avoid displacing people who are living outside, not conducting more police sweeps. And so we believe these police sweeps are worsening the spread of COVID by forcing people who are living outside to relocate. And we see this as a direct threat to our public health. Displacing individuals living in encampments makes them more vulnerable. It makes them less able to comply with CDC guidelines such as social distancing and practicing proper hand sanitation. And we as the medical people of the outreach team, we've seen the consequences of this harmful police action, and we've seen positive cases in our encampments. And so we really believe that continuing to clear encampments and displace people can potentially create a very serious medical crisis in our city's homeless population. I'll just conclude by saying we think this is wrong, and we're just requesting a stop to these police sweeps. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarush Kazemi, and I'm a medical student in Sacramento. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for having me here and all the hard work you do for the community. I'm calling on behalf of the organization Sacramento Street Medicine, like my colleague before me, regarding recent street sweeps of people experiencing homelessness. I want to say that one of our organization's biggest roles with this population is to be liaisons and health advocates for this population with acute and chronic health issues. With the frequent displacement that's been happening and we're witnessing in the street sweeps, the services we are able to provide and connect them with are fragmented. For example, we have patients with infections, wounds, diabetes, hypertension, etc. And we can check in with them weekly usually to follow up on their condition and take them to one of the local student-run clinics or other clinics to get their healthcare needs addressed. And it's already challenging as it is to provide continuity of medical care for people experiencing homelessness. And in my personal experience, I have encountered this issue throughout my interactions with this population. Now, with the constant breaking up and relocation of encampments, providing long-term treatment of chronic issues, delivering lab results, and even having continuity of care has become even more difficult than it usually is. Furthermore, I want to quickly address the sweeps have also impacted their lack of medications. When people experiencing homelessness are constantly being displaced, all of their belongings are also moving with them, which includes their medications. Many of them take their medications for chronic issues, like I mentioned earlier, like diabetes and hypertension and many others, antibiotics for infections, etc. And many times in these sweeps, people's medications are lost, stolen, or even thrown away by the police. This makes it increasingly difficult to manage chronic conditions and likely increases the prevalence of chronic conditions in people experiencing homelessness. Thank you so much for your time and attention to this matter. Have a great night.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi there. My name is Zachary Tsai. I'm an M1 medical student out here in Sacramento, and I just wanted to address the council about these police sweeps that have been happening in these encampments around town. It's my opinion that this is something that needs to stop and is a big public health issue that we're facing. Not only in these encampments are these vulnerable populations, but there aren't a lot of good access to sanitation and needs like that to stop the infectious disease spread. And I understand that there's a lot of programming reaching out to address the unhoused population in Sacramento, and continuing with these sweeps will undermine any further trust building there, along with those public health issues. So hopefully we can stop these sweeps, build a little bit more trust, and address all of these public health issues moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, council. Thank you for having me. My name is Paolo Desano. I'm a current medical student here in the Sacramento area, and like my colleagues have already talked about, I work with the Sacramento Street Medicine. And I just wanted to kind of harp on what they've been saying and talk about more about the physical harm and exposure that is occurring due to the police sweeping and clearings that are occurring in the Sacramento area. More, I just want to talk about it's cold. We're in the winter season right now, so it's very cold. And so this is exposing, on top of already having COVID as a huge issue that's affecting the homeless community. On top of that, we're exposing just strict, warmth, keeping these keeping the homeless people warm. And I know that the warming centers are no longer available for the people experiencing homeless to go and find shelter. So these kind of are putting the homeless people even more at risk. And also, I know that there's been reports of their belongings, such as their tents and their blankets, being taken from them, or being taken away without leaving them unsheltered and more or being exposed to the cold in a way that might worsen their already difficult circumstances. And I just think that we need to find a way that works for both the community and the homeless shelters to, or just the homeless population, and find a way to work together to keep them safe while also appeasing whatever the complaints might be about the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hello, my name's Conway. I'm a first-year medical student in the Sacramento area, and I also volunteer in homeless outreach programs over here. And I'm hearing that police sweeps are being increased after the holidays, considering like the COVID spikes. And I think that actually might be doing more harm than good. I think it might actually be risking more spread of COVID among the homeless, and not just among the homeless, but also Sacramento at large. I actually did a project over the summer researching on how San Francisco handled COVID among its homeless population. And one of the things I learned was, besides social distancing, one of the most important things you need to think about is limiting movement of people. And, we're seeing spikes of COVID cases nationwide, LA, San Francisco, Sacramento, especially because of travel over the holidays. And I think with these police sweeps, you're moving homeless who are all around Sacramento. You actually might be doing the same thing on a smaller scale, of risking more COVID exposures. And the second thing, I think, while working around Sacramento these past few months, I'm kind of hearing how a lot of these homeless community members, they feel really unsafe and unstable when police are, forcing them out their homes, taking their tents, their properties. And I think that's really not the message I want Sacramento and to send to people who are already kind of downtrodden and already have they're already getting the worst out of COVID. It's not fair to them that we're hitting them even harder. So yeah, that's just a big message. I don't think right now is a good time to be increasing police sweeps, and we need to start thinking a bit more about our homeless communities. Yep.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hello, council members. I'm a Midtown resident, and I'm calling to ask the city to convene a special meeting dedicated to discussing the police response to the violent gatherings of Proud Boys and other white supremacist groups in our cities. These are fundamentally violent and hateful groups who are gathering almost every week since the election and threatening, harassing, and physically attacking members of our city. We know that some of the Proud Boys who regularly harm people in Sacramento also attended the attack on the DC Capitol last week, and the Sacramento police have simply not done enough to prevent them. We've seen them stand by while Proud Boys threaten and assault counter-protesters and journalists, and this lack of action calls for real further investigation from the city. To add just a personal story about what this means, I have friends who live near the Capitol who do not go outside on days when the Proud Boys are there because they are not white and they fear for their safety. And that is completely unacceptable. And we need to do more to make sure all the members of our community are able to feel safe in our city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hello, my name is Robert Clumps. I live in District 4. My city council member, Katie Valenzuela, is correct. We need to do something about the eviction crisis that's going to happen if AB 15 doesn't pass in the state. So how many of your city council members endorse AB 15, and what are you going to do about it if it doesn't pass? And as far as I agree with the Sacramento Street Medicine people. If you sweep homeless population, they're going to go everywhere. They're not going to get their medication. They're not going to get services. And one thing, I don't think a lot of them trust the police department. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Yeah, Richard Wake, City Council, District 5. So,
with the full understanding, I guess, that homeless encampments can't be moved, even though in the case over here in Southland Park, this was known well long before COVID-19 even became a factor in not moving encampments. There are a lot of constituents in City Council Districts 4, 5, and 7 that are simply asking for very simple and practical and reasonable resolutions to some of the problems that are happening on Riverside Boulevard. For one, we need the parking restrictions changed on 35th Avenue by the Grove Apartments and from the bike trail all the way down to Brookfield School so people cannot park on the levee side of Riverside Boulevard for more than 4 hours. Riverfront and Waterview and Water's Edge Apartments on Riverside Boulevard agree with these restrictions, as well as do many other constituents that live in the surrounding area. We need to get trash cans up on the levee so the homeless people that are on the levee encampment can have places to put their trash. We also need a city trash bin or some other type of big trash bin from a private refuse company down in the gravel area down by Brookfield School. So there is more space to put trash that is not only put around the neighborhood by the unhomed people up on the levee, but also people that recreate on the levee to go fishing. And lastly, something needs to be done about the 7-Eleven store on 43rd Avenue. There are people that are coming in from the encampment on the river that are pulling all the trash out of the unsecured 3 trash cans in front of the 7-Eleven store, completely trashing 43rd Avenue and by the gas station, and putting their trash into the gas station, making it almost unbearable to walk on 43rd Avenue when you're walking with a pet because there's broken glass all over the sidewalk. So, even if the encampment can't be moved, not resolving these problems is no longer acceptable. A lot of this is in City Council District 5. Some of it is in District 4 and 7.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
Yeah, the brunt of it is in City Council District 5. Councilmember Chenier, no more delays. We're done playing around here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Council. My name is Zach Friels. I'm a resident of Midtown. I live near Fremont Park. Some of y'all are probably familiar with my labor organizing work, but I'm not here for that. I'm actually here to address the white silence about white violence in this community. And as a call out to my white city council members about what they're doing about white power within this city. Mr. Mayor, there is a lynch mob in my neighborhood. And that lynch mob has been organizing for months like their counterparts in all 50 states, culminating in that seditious attack on our nation's capital last week. I find it unsurprising that the city has allowed an unlawful assembly to continue without consequence. SAC PD directly coordinates with these white power groups in securing their perimeter. SAC PD stands back while white power groups attack BIPOC folks, and they stand by to arrest anyone that chooses to defend themselves. On the contrary, last summer, I firsthand saw SAC PD ignore looters and target protesters demanding justice for Black lives. I personally had to duck behind a Sacramento News and Review box while officers leaned out of the back of SUVs and shot people indiscriminately at Cesar Chavez Park. I have firsthand witnessed them stand back and do nothing and let people get attacked in this community. It's time for City Council to step up and call for an investigation into the ties that SAC PD may have to white power organizations. And to connect it back to the brave advocacy of the street teams that are doing the medical work for our unhoused folks, it is no coincidence that the folks brandishing knives and conducting sweeps, the folks that were on that video last week, it's the same kind of toxic masculinity that we see on display in front of the Capitol. We cannot have a city where we don't tolerate our unhoused folks, but tolerate our white power folks. That's got to stop. And I'm calling out the white leadership here. This is your mess. You've been silent for weeks, for months. This didn't just start last week.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
My final comment, we need to see more. You can't show up after the big attack last week and try to take credit for the work that people are doing.
Thank you
This
for
should have
your
been dealt
comments.
with a long time.
Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, my name's Emily. I was just calling to
please request, like the previous caller, that you have a special meeting dedicated to talk about the police response to the gatherings of Proud Boys and white supremacists in Sacramento at the Capitol every weekend, or more of the lack of response by the police force. They've been attacking community members. I work for the state, and we get emails every week telling us that we need to continue working from home for our safety so that nothing happens to us trying to get to the office. They've just, the fact that the police aren't really doing much for a hate group that is gathering at the Capitol, and that the city's not really calling it out, is really scary. And the white supremacists have just been more emboldened by the acts that happened at the National Capitol earlier this past week. So I really hope that you guys hold a meeting about it and do something about it, because the lack of response is kind of showing that Sacramento is okay with this, and that's just really disappointing. So hopefully we can address this and do something about it moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to, for just a second, again, next Tuesday, the 19th of January, we are calling for a public hearing at 2 o'clock to review all of the protest issues over the last 8 to 10 weeks, and also talk about what we do going forward. The public will have a full opportunity to participate. The council members will have a full opportunity to ask questions. We will look at video from all angles. And not an argument in any way, but I just want to say, I am calling out, and I know my other colleagues are calling out, anything that has to do with white supremacy, period, end of story. No place in our city, no place. Now, we can't prevent them from coming to peacefully protest if they choose to do that. But we don't want them here. And where it crosses over into anything that is an incitement of violence or violence itself, unacceptable. Let's have this discussion next week in full public view, and look at the video and look at all of it. And let's do that the day before the inauguration. Next caller, please.
Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. We saw last Wednesday at our nation's capital armed Proud Boys and white supremacists given the freedom to walk into the Capitol with little resistance. That stood in stark contrast to what we witnessed throughout the BLM protests over the summer. There, peaceful protesters were violently responded to by police with rubber bullets, tear gas, and physical force. This is no different in Sacramento. We have seen week after week police here allow Proud Boys and white supremacists to come and go as they please around the Capitol, while Antifa and counter-protesters are harassed and followed by police throughout the streets. BLM protesters in Sac were shot with rubber bullets and tear gas. There is video footage in the Sac Bee showing Proud Boys attack counter-protesters while Sac PD stood by and watched, and then proceeded to arrest the counter-protesters. The disparate treatment of BIPOC and their allies by police is frankly disgusting. There is footage of a Sac PD officer telling a Proud Boy, "We got your back." What this all tells me, in addition to the over-policing and incarceration of BIPOC, is that the police support white supremacy and fascism. This needs to be addressed immediately and not internally by the police. Furthermore, a statement condemning white supremacy is not enough. You need to implement changes that have real effects. I also want to echo the comments regarding the sweeps. These homeless encampment sweeps conducted by Sac PD are illegal per the Sacramento County Public Health Order and CDC guidelines, and more importantly, without adequate housing and shelters, they're immoral. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Mr. Mayor, I have no more callers.
Okay. Thank you all very, very much. Next Tuesday, 2 o'clock. We adjourn in memory of Max Fernandez and our colleague, Councilmember Ashby's beloved father. If there's nothing else to come before the City Council, we are adjourned.